Okay, guys, so I'm starting this video podcast series where I intend to talk to a lot of technology professionals who work within Australia. So, this could be people who are business analysts, product owners, product managers, developers, testers, right? So, hopefully, the goal for this podcast is that you guys get some real insights from people who actually work in the industry, and this might help you if you're looking to get a job in Australia. Otherwise, if you're looking to sort of get an understanding of what the technology ecosystem is like within Australia, this might be a really useful series for you guys. So, the first person that I'm going to be interviewing in today's episode is someone who I've known for the last few years, and he is originally from Germany, moved to Australia, and he's currently working as a business analyst in one of the leading mining companies within Australia. So hopefully today's episode should really be interesting for you guys, and you might get a lot of valuable industry insights from this video. So let's get started into this, and hopefully you guys find this useful. All right, so look, firstly, thank you, Andy, for giving us your time to share some of your insights, which I'm sure is going to be really useful for a lot of people looking to get into business analysis, or people that are already doing business analysis as their jobs. So I think there will be a lot that people can take away from this video. So so thank you for that. And so look, why don't we start firstly with a little bit about yourself and and your background, right? So I think
Yeah,
that will be a good start.
yeah. Well, thank you, Mudu, and thanks for having me today. So my name's Andy. I've been a business analyst for roughly 14 years now. I've started off in insurance, then I sort of moved into automotive, then I moved into education where I did a PhD, and then I moved into sort of bulk handling, grain handling, and now I'm in mining. So as you can see, I've moved through various industries, moved through various companies over the years, and I've probably been on more than 10, 15 projects over the years. Some were bigger, some lasted for multiple years, some were rather short, and you gain various insights within these projects.
Awesome. Wow. Look, I didn't realize you've worked in so many different industries. Actually, that's awesome. So look, before we get into talking about business analysis, I'm just curious to know what inspired you to get into the field of business analysis, or is that something that you just sort of randomly fell into, or yeah?
Well, as a kid, sort of growing up in the 80s, I had a computer 286, and even though sort of started playing with it, I never got into programming over the years, even as I was going through my bachelor's, master's. I do know how to program a little bit, but as I keep telling people, if you put me next to a developer, I'm probably 10 times slower than a developer. But I do know how to use a computer. I do understand how systems and applications, how you put them together, how you analyze data, how you make data move from one system into another system, what the structure of a data is. So I was always quite aware of how things need to look in order to work at a system level. And what I decided at some point in time is I looked for something that allowed me to use that skill and connect it with business. And that overlap is basically business analysis or management information systems, which is the foundation where you need to know what systems you need to put in place in order to help a company make something faster, make something better, and to create value for their customers.
Yeah, yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, look, I think I could share a lot of those similar, I guess, thoughts for myself as well. So I can totally relate to that. Right. So in terms of the role of a business analyst, what do you think are the key roles and responsibilities that a business analyst takes up when they start off in the job?
Well, the definition of a business analyst is quite widespread. It's not a hard definition of what if you go down the path of a business analyst, what you will be doing in 2 years' time and 3 years' time. Let's say in comparison to if an accountant who the definition of what accountant does is probably way more specific in comparison to what a business analyst does. So for a business analyst, it really depends on what you choose to become more proficient in. So you could go down the path of becoming a more technically inclined business analyst. You could go down the path of becoming a more functional or business side business analyst, which let's say for a functional business analyst analyzes a very specific department of a business, let's say improve finance processes, or let's say improve manufacturing processes. But that specific business analyst may not have to know what the underlying systems and how they're being connected, what the database looks like. However, if you choose the other path and say, okay, I want to become more of a technical or system level analyst, you would have to look into, well, how would I be able to define a cloud system for a customer, or how would I design a particular system landscape to solve a problem? And you need to understand um, what kinds of interactions, what kind of data flow do I need to design to make something possible for a company.
Right.
That's how I'd see what are certain key responsibilities or key skills that someone needs to develop over the years.
Yeah. Look, I think, you mentioned that you could choose, whether you want to go down the functional road or be a bit more technical. Now, is the skill sets completely different, or is there sort of similar skills that you would apply for both parts?
The skills would probably be the same. Where they differentiate is the knowledge that the BA develops over the time. So the skill set are still that you'd have to analyze and communicate with your main stakeholders in the project who you're working with. You have to understand what their problems are. You may have to run a problem analysis. You have to write documents and specifications. These skills are probably overlapping, but where the difference comes in is um, the level of when it comes to implementation. So the functional analyst, the functional business analyst, may come up with the first draft on what a solution could look like, and hands that over to the technical analyst, and they specify it further.
Yeah.
So they still need to talk to each other, but they also both need to be able to talk to the business when it comes to sort of validating their work and thoughts. Because oftentimes the business is only capable of sort of realizing they're facing a problem. But you, as the business analyst, may have to then make certain propositions on what a solution could be. So it's not always just coming up with this is that one path. Oftentimes you're sitting there when you're analyzing a business problem that you've understood, and the solution, maybe there's not one solution in place. Like, it's not always go out and buy this particular software package. There's multiple ways on how to solve it. So you have to write various options for the customer or for the vendor who you're dealing with, to answer to propose. You could go down this path. It may be a little more expensive. You'll get this and those benefits. If you choose the other path, you may have it quicker. But the problem is later on, you may have problems with integrating it to other systems that you're running. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Look, I think
that's
something that I've just, that just crossed my mind is that when you say stakeholders, right, do you mean just the business stakeholders, or you're going to be working within a project team, and there's a lot of communication that happens within your team? You've got a project manager, you might have an architect, right? So you've got developers. So what is the level of communication, and how does a business analyst fit in within a project team in the real world? Like, I think would be really useful to, I guess, gather.
um, where does he fit in? Where does he or she fit in? Um, in a larger project, the challenge of a business analyst would normally be to understand the business problem in the first place. So let's say it could be to understand um, how to design an aftermarket piece for manufacturing, or how to develop a new insurance product for a insurance company, or they're having problems with a present insurance product that it's not really adapted in the market. So that part would be to understand and sort of get information from the stakeholders and write it down. And then it be the task of the business analyst to liaise and share the thoughts of how a certain solution could work within the business team, with the enterprise architect that is more aware of what does the overarching system landscape and solution landscape look like, so that you don't go out of the limits of what the company wants to either spend or what kinds of system they want to implement. So it is sort of, it's a task of carrying ideas forward from the company into the team, but also as you are discussing problems with your teams in your weekly meetings, like if there's multiple business analysts, you will hear some of, and let's say if you're not working um, in the same business space or with the same business units, you will hear what other business units are thinking, how they're thinking, what problems they are dealing with, and you can take on these thoughts and put them in your thinking and bring it back to the business as well. You can say, look, the other business or the other um, subsidiary is also already thinking and doing something like this. We can reuse it, so you don't have to spend additional money on bringing in a new solution entirely.
Yeah, no, I think that
So,
is, yeah, that's a brilliant point, because I think that's something they always think of. A business analyst needs to be in the know, like they need to have the bigger picture in mind. They need to have some good knowledge of what's happening outside of their projects, because that helps them suggest, right, the rightful solutions. You've got to be, whatever you're proposing has to meet the company's long-term strategy. So this is where you involve the enterprise architects. So I think, yeah, that is a really, really, I guess, valuable point you've just made there for a PA. So look, I think we could talk a bit more about, project teams, but I think they've got a few questions that I want to
mhm.
get through, which I think will be really useful for our audience. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you face as a business analyst, and how do you overcome them?
um, well, let's say you you can be an internal business analyst within a company, and you can stay with a company for a very long time. I haven't gone down that path. So ever since I've started my business analyst career, I've always been either with consulting companies or an independent contractor. And having gone down that path, as I said at the beginning, you move through various business industries, you move through various projects, maybe even within the same industries, but different business units. You may have projects in finance, manufacturing, marketing. But what the challenge is when you're going down that path is every time you change and you move into a new um, business domain, you may not have the business knowledge to be able to communicate at the same level or the same, using the same keywords that some of the subject matter experts in those domains have. So the challenge would be to pick up that knowledge as quickly as possible, because they will not change for you when you start the project. If you start and plan workshops with them, you start asking them questions about what's the current process, who's doing these, who's running these processes, what are the underlying systems. They will talk at the same pace that they are talking to each other every day in, day out. So, and if you're not careful and ask, and oftentimes you have to slow them down to understand and ask questions on what do you mean by that, um, to learn what the actual critical points are. So that's one way, that's one challenge that a BA sort of faces as they move through various um, business roles or projects. The other one is um, that the software that the company uses, you may not be familiar with. So oftentimes moving from one company, from one project to another company, could mean a completely different stack of software that you need to deal with in terms of analysis. Great if you can bring your own software because you'd be familiar with it. You know how to configure it. You may need to you might be able to connect it to their systems. That's great. You can show your skills and be able to possibly reuse something that you know on how to configure the system. But oftentimes that's not the case. If you end one project, you hand the laptop in from the company and you get a new one from the new company and you have to configure it from scratch. So the problem then is when you're doing your analysis, you may come across a business analysis product that they tell you to use that you're not familiar with. So you have to develop the skills. You definitely know how to use, like, there's the underlying feel of how it should work. Like, you know how to model processes, you know how to develop how to model applications, how to link applications, how to design data flows, how to design application landscapes. But how the software forces you oftentimes to model it might be different. So to bring the same idea across, you may have to figure out how the software works. And you can do that on, like, at work, or if you really get into a certain software product, you might buy the license yourself and play around at home.
Yep. Okay, cool. No, that's awesome. Look, I think just to help the audience understand the point around softwares, right? So I think what you're saying is the software that you use as a business analyst, let's just say you use Visio to draw process
Mhm,
diagrams, and you've always done that, and you start a new company and they have, let's just say EA Sparks or
mhm,
something else to draw process maps. All the you would understand the basics concepts behind process mapping, but then the tool that you use would change, and you need to be able to pick that up pretty quickly, whatever
yep.
tools that the new company is using. So yeah, that's I think another thing that really important point that you made was around, I guess, getting up to speed with the business, right? So as a business analyst, I think this is one of the great things of being a business analyst, is that you get to work in different industries, and you get to pick up your domain knowledge through the projects that you work. And I think every time you start within a new industry, it takes a bit of time to understand that. And
Mhm,
this is where, as a business analyst, it's important that they ask the questions to the business, and they be vulnerable and ask things that they don't understand or don't know. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think this is a key skill that a business
mhm.
analyst, I think, should have, is just asking questions and being able to say I don't know something, right? Because sometimes.
There's a certain point though, so you can, it's okay to ask a question once, twice, but if you go down the path of always asking simple questions that are sort of just, and people pick this up, that are only there for you to enrich your knowledge, to understand how it works, that's fine for a certain period. But at some point in time,
Yeah,
that needs to sort of level off, and you need to be able to speak to them at the same level.
yeah,
And that's sort of when they actually take you seriously and work with you to solve the problems that they are facing moving forward. If you keep asking questions, then at some point in time they only perceive you as holding them back, and you will not be involved in sort of the problem solving or the decision making at certain points in time.
yeah. Okay, no, I think yeah, that is pretty clear. Yes, yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Right, so I'll move on to the next question, because I think we could spend a lot of time
Mhm.
discussing that one point, I feel. But let's talk about tools and techniques, right? So
Yep.
what tools and techniques do you find most useful in your daily work?
Well, my profession or my focus point has been in the past mainly around process management, process analysis, process improvement. So part of my core methodologies or techniques that I use is around process modeling in various notations. So I'm talking about modeling it in BPMN, EPCs. If it kind of depends on what the company wants you to use, but you need to be able to be flexible enough to sort of supply the skill set to their demand and match it. So if they want you to model BPMN, you should be able to do it. If they want you to model it in EPC, you model it. If they want you to go with simple flowcharts because it's quicker, because the company's moving that fast, stick with flowcharts. You can hold your own idea that flowcharts are sort of the simplest way, and that's why research has been going on and contributed to establishing EPCs and BPMN as the more advanced levels. But modeling these takes more time. So um, so BPMN and EPCs are kind of my core value set or core technique set. And then from a BA, oftentimes, depending on the project again, it's about translating business processes into requirements. So, and that depends on the project. Even if you're going for a tender to purchase a new software to implement, or even if you are analyzing an existing system that's already in place and you developing a new feature, a new branch of the software, a new version of it, you still need to write the requirements and capture the requirements. So there's various approaches on how you can model or phrase, capture your requirements, and that's a skill on its own.
Yeah.
So I'm not just talking about knowing that there's a waterfall for requirements management for test design. There's the agile world on how you write requirements and how you do the test design against agile requirements, um, and then with an agile sprint development. But it's about how do you structure requirements so that you can put them in a document and hand them off to a developer, or put them in a tender document. And on the surface, it sounds really easy, but actually doing it and doing it in a larger team can be quite confusing and stressful oftentimes.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. So, I guess so. You've been sort of an expert in process mapping. I think that's been your number one thing. But definitely you would have written so many requirements documents. And for requirements, what do you see as the most predominantly used tool for companies in Australia or in other countries that you worked for as well? Like, is there a tool that they use, or is it a Word document? Sometimes it could be an Excel document. Like, yeah. So
That's a question that's really hard to answer. Like, oftentimes, I've worked with various tools, but tools in the requirement space are kind of complex to use oftentimes. And when you're thinking of a business team to write requirements, they need to learn how to write requirements within that team. And the more requirements you write, maintaining a structure over multiple sort of revisions of a requirement, maintaining the structure within it may become really complicated. So unless you know how to use the software really, really well and know how to overcome problems and help your business team. So let's say you're a lead BA, and you are sort of as a team member, a team lead of 3 or 4 BAs. You need to be able to help them out to say, okay, you've had a revision change of a certain requirement. What does that imply for that particular BA? Um, and then because of these problems, oftentimes what happens in projects is they fall back to using Word and spreadsheets.
yeah.
Now, is that the better way? It's hard to say because both ways work.
Yeah.
I've seen both ways work. I've seen both ways fail. So
Right.
it kind of it's a
Yeah.
hard
Uh,
question to find an answer for.
Yeah, so I guess it's what the company environment provides you as well, right? So, and I think lately we use tools like Jira or the Azure DevOps a lot, in an agile project. So maybe that's a separate topic on its own. So I'm trying to get through all the questions.
Mm.
So let's move on to the next one, which is how important is it for business analysts to stay updated with the latest tools and technologies?
Um, well, it's quite important to stay up to date, because you would need to because skill change is always required from a business analyst, and I'd recommend to sort of look out and stay up to date with what's actually offered by sort of certain industry bodies. You can look at what Amazon, what Google offers on their certification platforms, because even though they offer sort of the cloud platforms for each one, they also offer, because they want to have people skilled to be able to consult based on what their solution architecture allows a company to do. They need people to have that certain knowledge. So you can jump onto these certification programs and get certified. The reason why I'm saying this is because if a certain skill set becomes really prevalent in the industry, let's say Google Cloud Analyst or Amazon Cloud Analyst or Solution Architect Analyst for Amazon platforms, it is very easy for a company to put that one line in a position offer and put it out on Seek or on some other job portal. And if you have that skill, you can respond to that one line with, yes, I've got this one, I've done it, and I know what you're talking about when you're moving down that path. So that puts you a bit further ahead compared to people who haven't gotten that skill. Now, is that when it comes to sort of standard business analyst skill sets, is that something that um, puts you or differentiates you from others in terms of the foundational knowledge? No, I wouldn't say so, because the foundational knowledge, such as um, certain enterprise architecture designs, process modeling, value chain or process analysis, requirements design, certain data analysis, to a certain extent, the foundational parts is what makes a business analyst, and that's just expected from someone.
Yeah, yeah. And look, I think when you said foundational knowledge, is that something you could learn through certifications as well, or is that a bachelor's degree, or how do you gain that, or is it more your own research? What gives people the knowledge that they need to become a business analyst, or the basic knowledge that
Mhm.
I'm talking about here?
So, in order to get the basic knowledge, look, you can always go down the path of universities and do a degree in business analysis, management information systems, business information systems. Um, yeah, but there's the whole discussion around whether universities give you that knowledge or whether industry is enough to actually jump into and say, okay, I'm going to do an internship and hope that I'll get the industry knowledge that I need within the first 6 months, one year, and be able to move it up from there.
Yeah,
You can definitely go down the path of doing online degrees, doing industry certificates such as TOGAF, OMG for BPMN. But does that these contribute to your foundational knowledge? Like like I said in the beginning, BA isn't really defined as once you've got this degree, you are a BA. You may still have a master's degree. You go into your first project and you kind of don't know what's expected. And you learn by doing that, and with as your skill develops, you become more familiar with what you need to apply, how you react to certain situations, um, and you build it up from there. So as you learn that, okay, for this project, I may need to be able to analyze a database. Well, the university may only offer a database course as part of your management information systems that roughly equates to, let's say, 20 hours per semester. Now you pass that unit, can you analyze a database as much as is expected from your um, customer? Probably not, because in the university setting, the database was set up for you to analyze. There were certain problems in there that were foreseen.
yeah,
In the business world, the database has problems on its own. There are problems in the database that you may not be able to identify because you don't have the knowledge yet. So you need to teach yourself. And teaching yourself is probably one of the, I wouldn't even know if that's a BA skill or just anyone's skill who wants to move forward in a career, to force yourself to pick up new knowledge as they move along.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I keep seeing, that you need to push yourself to understand something. It doesn't come easy to, not even me, to understand what a certain problem is and how you can solve it. Like, I need to sit there and sort of chisel away on what the actual problem is and what a potential solution can look like. And oftentimes there are no books that tell you that. There might be 10, 20 books that sort of um, um, touch on the point,
Yeah.
but they don't give you the answer.
I guess I think this is where the analytical thinking or your thinking skills matter most, because no university degree is gonna tell you what the problem is going to be when you start as job as a business analyst in a company. It's gonna you That's the bit that where you
Mhm.
actually doing the analysis to figure out the problem, right? And I think
Yeah.
that was great. Yeah. And I think, see, the next question I had was, what advice would you give to someone looking to start a career in business
Oh,
analysis? I think you've already looks like you've
just
covered that a
kind
little
of,
bit. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything else that you think you would want to add to that.
just apart from what I just said, in terms of always try to sort of advance your knowledge, maybe even um, like you can sort of expand on it and say, okay, for the next half year, I'm going to learn one particular software product. I'm going to teach it myself, regardless of whether it's expected of you to use it in your next project or not. Like, let's say you can sit down and say, okay, I'm going to buy an EA license and I'm going to learn how to model in EA specifically. You can do the same with Visio. Now, how do I use Visio? And the benefit of that is, once a project comes around that actually uses one of these software products, you have it. Because it's been in the past by then, you may have to do a bit of a refresher on it, but you know how to use it compared to someone else.
Yeah. So I think when you said EA, you mean enterprise architect.
And Spark's Enterprise
Yeah.
Architect,
So
which is a
that's it.
specific project for a product for um, enterprise architect modeling, process modeling, but it goes as far as database design, database modeling, database schema design, and exporting and importing. So it's a whole fleshed out product.
Oh,
But
wow.
I've just used it as an example.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so even other products, like you can say that, okay, any specification is always written in Word. Does it have to be written in Word? Like, you can say, okay, instead of writing requirements in Word, I'm going to go down the path of trying to learn IBM Rational Rows. Is that is their requirements design product, or I'm going to use Polarion, which is another requirements design tool. How do they allow a business analyst to write requirements? What are the particular um, flows within that tool that allow you to do the elicitation of requirements, let's say within a workshop? How do you document them? How do you do a revision review? How do you do quality analysis of your requirements? Does the software help you to point out conflicts within requirements, or across requirements, I should say?
Yeah.
So anything of these knowledge, this kind of knowledge puts you ahead compared to other business analysts.
Right.
Now, the problem with that is, these are very detailed knowledge points. Can you put them on a CV? Probably not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Look, I think I was going to ask you the key skills or the qualifications that's required for a business analyst, but I think I'm going to slightly change that and ask you, what do you think are the three most important skills that a business analyst should possess? It could be a hard skill or a soft skill. So I'll leave that to you. But from your experience, What do you think are the three most important ones so that people can focus on those?
Okay, the first one is probably an obvious one, which is communication. So, but when I mean communication, it's mainly um, it's two-way communication. It's first one is that you need to be able to communicate, um, to understand. So, the first one is that you need to be able to understand and listen to your customer or client. What are the problems? And you need to be able to understand them at the proper level and to the proper depth so that they make sense. The other way is then um, is communication in terms of being able to create PowerPoints that persuade a customer towards a certain, either to point out the problem um, again, so that the problem becomes clearer to the customer, and the customer or the client can say, yes, that's actually the problem that we've been talking about, or to communicate once you've done your analysis from what you've understood the problem to be, to communicate back what kinds of, as I mentioned before, you oftentimes need to be able to provide three different solutions or solution propositions that you've made that you will make to the customer, to your client, um, and put them on a PowerPoint slide or put them in some sort of communication medium that the customer can understand. And in that sense, you need to be able to put it together with a knowledge of what is or who's going to be in the room when you're presenting.
Yeah.
So that's one.
Yeah.
Um, so skill sets. The other one then is I'd probably say again, being adaptable to different problem spaces. So
Yeah.
um, that you don't sort of like when you work as a consultant within a company, so a consulting company, they may ask you, do you want to join this project? And the project will be X, Y, and Z as a topic that you need to analyze. And you may have no idea what that is when they tell you it is. You may have some idea from past projects, but let's say for this instance, you don't really understand the details of the problem yet. Now, the easiest one for you could say, I'm not going to go on that project because I won't be able to help them. It's You will be able to help them with a bit of help and support over the first couple of days and weeks. You will be able to produce something that the customer and client wants and possibly likes. So it's adaptability, I'd say.
Yeah. Cool. So communication, adaptability,
Ability.
and the last
And the
one.
last one I'd say is complex or logic thinking. So being able to, so let's say it comes back to picking up a problem from the client, being able to analyze it in a logical way so that the client understands what you've done. You need to be able to show your steps how you've done it. Oftentimes, depending on who you present it to, you may not be required to present. Oftentimes, managers and middle managers only want to see or hear about the outcome. They don't want to know how you got there.
Yeah.
But this analytical skill set to be able to say, okay, I'm going to develop my methodology. These are the steps that I'm going to follow. This is what I need to do for each step. And I'm doing these 4 or 5 steps in order to create this as an output.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
That's
So
what
I
I'd say.
think, yeah, I totally agree. And I think when with communication, I think listening and communication, I think they're both equally important. And then I think the other important thing is it's not just verbal communication; it's how do you effectively convey something. It could be through PowerPoints or how you present information. So yeah, that is there any sort of learning resource that you recommend, or do you just see like the IIBA or these sort of business industry bodies giving you information on it? But like how do you, and as a business analyst, how do I keep myself updated and
Mm.
continuously learn, right? And
Yep.
is there anything that you have that you recommend?
So let's separate this out into methodological knowledge or method knowledge, which would be what industry bodies such as TOGAF, OMG offer. So any kinds of EA modeling, enterprise architecture modeling, or business process modeling, you can definitely go out to the library, go to university, and pick up the right books from the library and read those books. They will certainly give you the a certain level of knowledge so that you are able to understand the concepts. Now, what I'd recommend is, though, try to be as hands-on as possible whilst doing that bit as well. Now, when I say you have to like you have to have certain confidence in your skills when it comes to methodology, when it comes to critical analysis. You can always add to that by reading books and all that. But when it comes to sort of implementing it, try to actually start a program and model a business process. Or um, if you want to improve your technical understanding, over the last couple of years, what's been going on in the industry is that more and more companies are moving from sort of virtualization to um, containerization. So this is going towards understanding what is Docker, what is Kubernetes, and how do you develop a system, or how do you design for a system that is ready to be containerized and allows scaling into multiple environments, that allows scaling of the reverse proxy server, or that allows scaling of the web server, that allows scaling of the application server, or how do you design a certain database replication platform. So, and you can do all these if you've got access to like Google, and I think even Oracle, or Amazon as well. I think they offer free tiers for cloud computing. So
Okay.
you can definitely do like help yourself and teach yourself these skills if you're smart enough to find them. And well, let's say not smart, if you're lucky enough to find them, and use out for 30 days,
Yeah.
and pick up the skills.
Yeah, I think that's something that I always do. I just get a free trial and try and learn any tool. So yeah, no, that's great. So, look, I think we're sort of coming to the towards the end of the interview, right? So,
Hmm?
where do you see the field of business analysis heading in the next five or 10 years?
Well, the first thing when I think nowadays, when the question of where does something move to, it's always the first answer would be, well, there's going to be AI of some sort. Um, but it depends on how AI will actually impact business analysts. So, because of the way AI at the moment is structured, which is basically they're more advanced chatbots. So, what you can do with them, and let's say I have no idea whether this chat interaction will be the norm still in 5 to 10 years. Let's just go with it that it would be. Um, and as they learn more within BA, maybe there will even be a BA specific AI that a company has trained on their data, and a business analyst might be able to utilize that company internal AI to, instead of planning workshops with stakeholders, with SMEs, they can just chat with their AI, because essentially it'll have all the knowledge. Now, is that something that could happen? Yeah, maybe. Will it have the same level of knowledge as 50 SMEs? Well, that needs to be proven.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd see business analysts possibly interacting with client side AI could be something that we may need to adopt to. The other way would be, okay, how could AI be utilized by a business analyst over the next couple of years? Um, well, you could definitely ask an AI questions such as design a capability model for a certain domain, for an aftermarket, for manufacturing, because most of these standardized capability models are actually out there, and you would assume that some of the AIs have been trained on this data set already and know about it. Um, and you can then sort of move it forward and derive certain processes interacting with the AIs, like what are the standard processes for this particular skill set? What are some of the requirements that come out of this particular process? So a BA would need to develop a certain sort of what used to be SEO, search engine optimization. It and a BA in the future may need to become AIEO, artificial intelligence engine optimization.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think AI is certainly going to have an impact. I guess it's not 100% clear as to what that's going to look like. But yeah, look, I think, like you say, everyone talks about AI now, and they talk as if it's going to change every job. I think there's going to be impact to every job and how people do their work. But like I'm in the same boat. Like I'm not 100% clear. I'm seeing all these tools that that have popped up which will generate content for you, but then as much as it helps generate content, maybe it increases productivity, but the role of a business analyst, I think, is still the fundamentals don't change. So I think
Mm.
that's where I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So the same part would be if even like let's stick to the example where the AI becomes a substitute for the SMEs. Well, the normal skill set of a BA would be to actually validate and verify what the SMEs in the workshop have said and say, is this actually correct? And
Yeah.
does this specify the problem? You would need to do the same with the response from an AI, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
So
Yeah.
that skill set doesn't go away.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Is there going to be a big shift in how a BA works, like how a BA does his job?
Well, if we just apply a time scale of like over the next couple of years, I don't really think that the tasks that are handed to BA will change that much. The core essence of a BA is still sort of to solve problems for a customer or a client in terms of making something quality wise better, making something faster, making it something cheaper, or produce something completely new that has not been out there. So it's a product perspective, and make it work. Um, but how do you get there? If you actually ask yourself the question, how does this happen? How do you create this? And it doesn't even need to be improvement. It's just sort of evolutionary change within the organization. It's oftentimes it's understanding how what we're doing now, if there actually is something that the company is doing now. If they're developing something from the ground up, there is no now, and you have to sort of come up with how could this work.
Yeah.
So the skill sets that we've talked about earlier on still apply, and
Yeah.
the BA still needs to be able to communicate, to carry ideas forward, to communicate correctly, to bring the right people in the right room to discuss certain and make certain decisions happen to move forward. And only through decisions you can move forward. Decisions can be reviewed later on. You can always go back and make changes, but the important bit is to move forward in that sense.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I don't foresee that the tasks of a BA over the next couple of years don't change that much. Um, how a BA does it on a day-to-day BA basis, it may change with the tools that the BA uses,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
there's always tools that come and go.
I think that was it really. And I want to thank you again for for doing this, and I think it's going to help a lot of people.
No
Is there
problem.
any other closing thoughts you want to say?
Oh, no, well, as closing thought, maybe like keep at it. Um, as a BA, there's always challenges out there that companies are facing,
Yeah.
and you can only enrich your knowledge as you move forward. And I think getting better um, takes a certain amount of time. And what I would say is set yourself a target in terms of a career path that you'd like to follow. Like you don't, even if you start off within BA, you don't have to stay within BA. For me, a BA skill set is a foundational knowledge to become maybe even a better project manager, maybe even move into enterprise architecture, or actually move um, into a fixed role within a company in finance and manufacturing in marketing, because you have the knowledge on how to improve certain things you can pick up because you've seen across many different companies how they've done it, and you can then say when you go into a company, hey, let's do it this way, because you can spot the problem straight away and you know how to help the team to make it better.
Yeah. So yeah, so being a BA opens a lot of doors, I guess, and opportunities. Is what
Yeah,
you're saying. So yeah, no, that's awesome. All right. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Andy. And well, hopefully we get to do another one of these on a different topic in future. But no, thank you so much for your time
no
today.
problem. It was a pleasure to be here.